Making headlines tonight. More nurses arrived from Ghana to bolster the local healthcare system. Fire destroys an abandoned house. Solar Dynamics records a profit. And coming up in sports, the Winides start the ICC T20 warm-ups on a winning note.
The CBC NewsNight headlines are brought to you with the compliments of Courtesy Garage Limited, celebrating 100 years of legendary service, legendary performance.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. More than 100 nurses flew into Barbados from Ghana this morning to bolster the local healthcare system, which is under strain as a result of a shortage.
Around 8:50, this Euro-Atlantic Airways flight landed safely on the runway at the Grantley Adams International Airport. Shortly after, braving some rainy conditions, 122 Ghanaian nurses disembarked the aircraft and were greeted by local officials headed by Executive Chairman of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Juliet Bino Sutherland. Despite the dreary weather, the contingent from the African Republic received a warm welcome. Ms. Bino Sutherland said the nurses come with a range of specialties like critical care, accident and emergency, and ophthalmology, all areas where there are gaps in services here in Barbados.
We are expecting 56 nurses from Ghana to join the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and 66 to join the agencies of the Ministry of Health. That is the geriatric hospital, psychiatric hospital, and polyclinic system. These are nurses of all areas of specialization who were recruited specially to join us here in Barbados. All of them have specialist qualifications. They join us at a time where our need for nursing continues to be great.
The hospital's executive chairman said it is part of the country's continuing efforts to address the nursing shortage.
We're doing our best nationally to ensure that we can increase the output of numbers of nurses at the Barbados Community College. And in all of our institutions, we've enhanced our retention programs for the nurses here in Barbados. However, like many hospitals globally, we are faced with nursing shortages. And there are some countries like Ghana who are producing nurses, excellent nurses, and producing them for the global market.
Meanwhile, Ghana's Director of Human Resources in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Kwesi Asubir, said his country is training nurses at a phenomenal rate.
We are able to produce over 20,000 nurses annually. Looking at the numbers, we think that we cannot consume these numbers locally. We need to support other nations internationally. And this is the first government that has decided, as a matter of policy, to send nurses abroad. And the first country to receive this policy realization is Barbados.
The head of the Health Training Institutions Unit in Ghana gave the assurance that the nurses are well trained.
We have had to follow global standards of training in terms of ICN protocols, that is International Council of Nurses protocols, International Confederation of Midwives protocols. So these nurses meet international standards.
The nurses will be in Barbados for a period of 2 years.
Fire officials were pressed into action this morning to deal with a blaze at Military Road in Bank Hall, St. Michael. 6 fire officers and 2 tenders from the Bridgetown station responded to what turned out to be a derelict house on fire. The house was destroyed. Patricia Aline Brewster told CBC it was owned by her late uncle and it was upsetting to see it razed by fire.
It's heartbreaking because my uncle had died some years ago, probably about 8 years ago. And since then, no one was living in the house due to certain circumstances. And it was just abandoned, right? And I was told that there were, guys that usually do drugs and stuff, they would come and be living in the house and stuff. So it's really heartbreaking to see a house, just go up like that. It was a good house when he died, but just left abandoned.
More than a dozen at-risk youth are being trained in climate-smart agricultural production as part of efforts to ensure food security in Barbados. It's being done through a partnership between the Caribbean Youth Environment Network and the Barbados Youth Action Program. National coordinator for the network, Shannon Weeks, says agriculture is a major sector given its importance to food security, which impacts human health and survival. But she believes the sector will need to undergo major changes if it is to become resilient against climate change.
It is said that the planet will have to feed an additional 1.5 billion people in 2030, 90% of whom will be living in developing countries like Barbados. And therefore, the world will need to raise its food production by 60 to 70% to feed more than 9 billion people by 2050. But in some parts of the world, like the Caribbean, there have been reported loss of agricultural productivity due to climate impacts such as drought, heavy rainfall, wildfires, and increased incidences of pests, some of which are not known to the region. Hence, these impacts are making agriculture more difficult, which will make it harder to feed the additional 1.5 billion people in 2030 and beyond.
Ms. Weeks was speaking during the opening of a training session for participants of the Climate Justice Project. At the end of the training, she says there will be opportunities for the participants to find work in agriculture.
CYEN has collaborated with the Barbados Youth Action Program to create this project, which will see 20 at-risk young people being educated and sensitized to the issues of climate justice and climate change, and how agriculture will be affected through plenary sessions as well as hands-on training sessions. At the end of the project, CYEN will present the Barbados Youth Action Program with a small seed grant to be used for support in a sustainable agricultural endeavor where the participants can be employed.
The draft policy concerning the multi-hazard early warning system could be before Parliament within a couple of months. That's a word from Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Kerry Hines, who revealed the push is finally complete. The draft comes as the DM prepares for International Risk Reduction Day this Thursday. Ms. Hines was a guest on CBC TV8's The People's Business.
We do have a number of meetings for that particular day, a number of webinars that we will be participating in and meetings for the stakeholders. That is more surrounded around the policy because we have been working on the draft multi-hazard early warning systems policy for quite some time. And it is within this vein that we are really trying to finalize that documentation so that we will have it ready to go through our governance process, our Emergency Management Advisory Council, and then on to Cabinet at some point in the very near future to have it approved.
We're getting more details about a new mechanism created for Barbados and the region to enhance the response to hazards affecting CARICOM member states. Specialist with the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, Dr. Nicole Greenidge, revealed on The People's Business that a regional early warning systems consortium has been established.
We recognize that when we're talking about multiple hazards, there are multiple actors, and each of them brings something to the table, but we also need to coordinate. We also need to have standards across the region in terms of the equipment that is used, in terms of the feedback loops that we want to have to make sure that people are getting those warnings. And so SEDEMA has convened a regional early warning systems mechanism, also including broadcasting, the broadcast union, universities to ensure we have the science there and so forth. Because the reality, Shane, is that multi-hazard early warning systems is not simply about having a system that can give you a warning about different hazards, floods and earthquakes and so forth. But you want to be able to also identify the cascading aspects of that hazard.
Coming up, Prime Minister Motley calls on the country to rally together. Prime Minister Mia Motley has impressed on the need for Barbadians to come together to rise above the challenges that confront the country. She says there are too many who, because of the difficulties, will believe it is impossible. Ms. Motley is confident with God's help and the commitment of creativity of Barbadians, the country will be able to face any obstacle.
It is the example, the tangible example of what is happening here, that must stand as an inspiration, that must give us confidence in whatever aspect of our lives, be it personal, be it at work, be it in those areas where we must come together as a nation to fight things not made within these shores, but outside.
Ms. Motley's remarks came during the official opening of the Covenant Life Teaching Center Sanctuary in Green Hill, St. Michael. She expressed delight at the effort and journey of the church.
We live in a time when people want fast food and fast cars and instantaneous messages and everything else that comes. And that's good. All of us enjoy that. But there cannot be a substitute for dedication, perseverance, commitment, loyalty. And if you clap for that, what are you going to clap for when I say faith?
Senior Pastor Bishop Wesley Deere says the journey that began over 20 years ago continues. He says every leader must recognize that though some things will appear impossible, they must continue to fight on.
Leadership is the capacity to convert vision into reality, and this sanctuary is testimony to that fact. I'd like to suggest that the world is fast becoming a more difficult place to live. And the church folk are finding it easier sometimes to conform to the dictates of the world than it is to be transformed by the Spirit of the living God. So the church has some work to do. We must begin to behave like if we believe God, then we do what God says. And if you trust in God, there's nothing the devil can do to stop you from achieving your goals and your dreams.
The life of the late lawyer, Pan-Africanist and politician Robert Bobby Clark was celebrated as the Caribbean came together to pay homage to a man who left his mark not only on the local scene, but regionally. Tributes flowed from his family along with a wide cross-section of Barbadians, including Prime Minister Mia Motley, MP for St. Michael East Trevor Prescott, and Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM David Comachong during an evening of tributes to Bobby. Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, and representatives from Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, and the ambassadors of Cuba and Venezuela were present in Golden Square for the tributes. Ms. Motley says Mr. Clark's work has inspired generations.
I want publicly today to thank Bobby Clark, Elombe Motley, and a few others who have been as steady as they could be in inspiring generations of us who came after, recognizing that they may not necessarily have won the battles of politics in a mass-based democracy, because they could not easily live within the confines of political institutions.
Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, while reflecting on the late Bobby Clark, says he was a dear friend and comrade. He says Clark's contributions are ones we must remember.
It is important that we remember the story of Bobby Clark. And we have to urge a very serious historian or political scientist to write a full-length biography of Robert Bobby Clark. He has been an eyewitness and an ear witness to the tumultuous events in our Caribbean, our hemisphere, and the world. From his early childhood in the 40s into the struggle for independence, Cuban Revolution, and all the phenomenal changes which have taken place since then up to the present time.
Sports time now. We head over to the sports studio and say a very good evening to Sean Green.
Well, good evening to you, Shane, and good evening to you. Well, the polished half century from Brandon King and an incisive spell of bowling from Raymond Reefer lifted the two-time champions West Indies to a comfortable win over the United Arab Emirates in their first warm-up match of the ICC T20 World Cup. Now, King led the batting with 64 from 45 balls with 7 boundaries and 2 sixes as the West Indies posted 152.9 of their 20 overs in Melbourne early this morning. Skipper Nicholas Pooran also looked in good touch as he struck 5 towering sixes in a knockout 46 of 31 balls, adding 95 for the 4th wicket in 10 overs to rebuild the innings after it had slipped to 22 for 3 in the 5th over. Now, Junaid Sadiq was excellent with figures of 5 for 14. Here's a look at the Windies innings.
Oh, that's a full toss and it's bowled him! Straight through him! Oh, that's in the air too. Is it going to be over the top? It is. It's been well timed. It was nothing more than a punch and it's going to go to the rope. Paran's hit this one big. This is massive, almost up to us. Huge six that crashes into the City Power Centre on the full. Oh, that's a good shot. Yeah, that's going for 6, and that might hit the scoreboard just underneath it. Short one, Reefer is going to be caught here. He should be caught. He is, yes! Well done there from Junaid. He's going so well for the Emiratis. He's now got 2 for 9. Oh, another short one. Oh, is that out it is! Spectacular catch, and Junaid has 4 wickets. Oh, that time he's just, it's catching practice. Smith back on strike, he's on 5, and he's bowled! And Junaid Sadiq has got 5 wickets against the West Indies. What a performance. Oh, that's a massive 6. To the long side, it was a full toss, but it's gone up towards the Blackie Ironmonger stand, and that's gone all the way.
And with a required rate of 7.5 per over, UAE batted steadily until Reefer claimed 3 wickets in the space of 11 balls as the innings went into a rapid decline. They went from 52 for 1 at one stage to be 66 for 5 before falling short on 135 for 6 in reply as Reefer ended with 3 for 17. Now, assistant coach Roddy Eswick was pleased with the good start to the warm-up games, even though he knows improvement is still needed.
Well, any game that you go into, you want to win, and you want to try and plan properly and execute those plans properly. You know, there's still 1 or 2 areas that we need to work on. It was good to see Nicholas Pooran getting some runs also, you know, but we lost some early wickets. We didn't assess the conditions as you would like because the ball was stopping a bit, seaming around a bit, but in the end, you know, there was a good partnership between Brandon King and Nicholas Pooran, and that got us up to 150 odd, and we always felt on that pitch we were able to defend that.
Solar Dynamics Limited has defied the COVID-19 pandemic, reporting good profits and growth in Barbados and throughout the region. Founder and Managing Director James Husbands tells the business report the company has seen double-digit profitability over the last few years.
In the last 3 years, we've had increases in our sales every year. In our St. Lucia operation, last year we had a 40% increase in our sales and our profitability. In Barbados, we've had, I think it's 15% increase in this year. our year end of May. So we have done pretty well, I would say, during the pandemic.
The pioneer in the solar water heating industry was speaking as he celebrates 50 years in business. Mr. Husbands also revealed new partnerships have led to an expansion of the business into the ABC Islands.
Hyman is one of our distributors, and they've just come on board for the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And so we're supplying them with hot water systems in Barbados, as well as the ABC Islands. And so I'll be doing some more training with their staff and make sure that, and I do need to go to the islands and do some training for them with their teams there. I've done some training in Guyana with our distributors there, GAFOR. They brought people from their 7 outlets into Georgetown for training. So there are things that I will do as a consultant with the business.
The CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, CROSSQ, launched its regional non-medical lab policy at a meeting today. In addressing the gathering, Minister of Energy and Business, Carrie Simmons, says the new developmental strategy comes at an opportune time for the region. Trevor Thorpe reports.
According to Minister Simmons, the focus on quality is to ensure that businesses and professionals are able to trade successfully on the global stage. And in commending CROSSQ on its milestone, he said it is testament that they must be doing something right as a collective of national and sovereign states.
CROSSQ, I think it is fair to say, has raised the bar of expectation for all players, especially in the area of industry. And again, facilitated this region's capacity for trade and to put our business people, especially those related to the manufacturing sector and industrial enterprise, on a footing where they can access international markets and can compete as equals in those markets.
Minister Simmons said CROSSQ had been constantly raising the bar, but some regional accreditation issues were still outstanding and need to be addressed.
While we are part of a concept called CARIFORUM, the fact that we have not settled these things internally, and the fact that even within CARICOM, we still today have the challenge of making sure that some of our professionals are recognized with ease in Suriname, which is part of CARICOM, tells us that we still have a long way to go if we are going to translate the talk and the effort to build the opportunity into the lived reality for our people.
Chief Executive Officer of CROSSQ, Derek Omar, gave some insight regarding the new strategic plan.
And our vision for the next 3 years is really to carry quality infrastructure to the people, be them in the public service, the private enterprise, or consumers. And our vision is transforming and empowering lives through standards and quality. So we really took away all the technical work from developing our vision statement, and we all united behind the objective this year of transforming and empowering lives through standards and quality.
Trevor Thorpe for the Business Report.
That's our news. Good night and be good. Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.